Hey everyone, it is Danielle Marie from the One Realty here in Austin, Texas with your weekly Austin real estate update. So my name is Danielle Fountain and I'm the founder of the One Realty, and we take a data-driven, all-one approach to real estate. So weekly we track the numbers, we want to see the trends, we want to see the leading indicators, and that is what we're going to do today. So first and foremost, be prepared. I think that there's some pausing happening in the Austin real estate market. Maybe not the drop off the cliff that some of the doomsday people want out here in Austin. And we're about to go through it. So first off, if you're not following me, be sure to subscribe, to like, to follow. Also, if you save this, that helps me out a lot. Number one, for people to find me, but number two, also for you to find me later on. So without further ado, we are going to hop into the Austin real estate market. So every week I track kind of what's happening, what are the trends, what are the numbers. So first and foremost, this is my big thing for the week, is we are heading into, so we have the spring buying season. We typically have the summer selling season. Typically we see inventory start to build and to sit on top of each other. Now we have had a early year of inventory. We already well exceeded our inventory from last year. I think last year our peak was at like 3683 in 1 month, so 3,683 listings in 1 month. It was already over 4,000, meaning total listings that came to the market. Now, this number is always going to be a little bit lower because some get taken off the market, they sell. So at any point in time, we've already had over 4,000 houses for sale at one point this year. So currently we're at 30,783, which is actually a decrease of 12 from last year. So it's not a huge decrease, but that's something to keep in mind because this was also the weekend after the holiday. And typically the holiday weekend, we know there's not going to be as many, or 2 weekends after, we're not going to see as much movement during that listing time frame during the holiday weekends. But typically 2 weeks later, we're seeing it. So the question is, did sellers start listing their house earlier this year because they didn't know what was happening with the market? Were they being more proactive? That potentially could be the case based on how many listings that we had come to the market. That being said, we are seeing our average price point drop down and our median price point drop down. Number one, it's probably also because of the listings that are coming to the market, because in the past 7 days, we had 384 houses come to the market. 36 of them were repeat listings, meaning they probably went under contract, they came back on, or they were on hold and they came back on. We'll talk about that. But the price point was lower. And that's the average and median price point. So our average price point was below $1 million. Whereas if you look right now, our current average price point is at 1.16 million. We hit our peak in April. So if you think about that, kind of makes sense because sellers, a lot of times, the really key time for a seller to sell, honestly, March and April is amazing because a lot of times there's not as much inventory. People are waiting to sell their houses closer to the end of the school year. And if you can hit early on in March and April, it might set you up for a success with buyers. That being said, people also might list it a little bit higher to see if they get that number and then trickle down until they get really serious and have to move during the summer months. So not surprising that we're seeing all this drop down week over week. We're seeing the drop down. We have continued to see our average and our median days on the market go up. That's just because we do not have the buyers that we've had in the past. And if you hang on long enough and you stay with me, we're actually going to go through what happened in May. We're going to talk about everything that happened in the month of May here in Austin. Then we're also going to talk about where we are in June. And so when I look at the month of May, we're going to look at year over year. We're going to compare it to April. We're going to also look at the 20-year spread. So from 2005 into today to see kind of what that looks like. And then I added something new this week. I added where we were when we closed out December, because a lot of people say like, hey, is the market up or down for the year? And I didn't want to put January's necessarily because January's we had already started the year. So we look at where we ended December and then where we are today. So stay tuned for that. That being said, the number of prices with a listing, the number of listings with a price reduction, we fell by 46. So 46 fewer houses had a price reduction this week. However, our total number, 46 more this week. And so let me correct that. 46 more houses had a price reduction this week than last week. taking our total number of listings with a price reduction, we are just shy of 55%. To put that into perspective, when we were in December, so going December, January, that week of the transition over the new year, we were a little bit over 53%. So we have more price reductions now than we did in January and December, which gives a leading indicator that with sellers, if you're serious about selling, you kind of want to act on it quicker, just because of what's going to happen. Now, I like to give additional data that you don't see in here. So sometimes when you read the notes, you don't get all the information unless you watch your video. So with that being said, the average, so if we look at how long it took someone to have a price drop here in Austin, the average listing, it took about the median. Averages kind of skews because you have outliers. So I like to hit on median. The median listing was on for 20 days before it had a price drop. The average price drops of all the homes that have had price drops, so they might have had multiple price drops. So it's not your average price drop that one time, it's your average over all the ones that have had a price drop is 8%. Now, 20 days till you have your price drop. Then the next thing that's kind of very interesting to go with is how long did it take for that house to go under contract once the price drop happened? So in Austin, after a price drop happened, on average, the houses that went under contract was 16 days. So 16 days from their price drop is when it went under contract. So that's actually very good to know if you are a seller. If you do a price drop and you don't see something the first week, and it maybe takes a little bit more time into the second week, just know kind of that's what it's taking. If you are a buyer and a house has been sitting on the market for like 15 days, you're not sold to where you need to make an offer, but you're like, hey, wait a little bit, maybe wait till the 20th day mark. But you have to be okay that if the house goes under contract, you're fine with it. It also might be an idea of, hey, let's wait to see how long. Now, what I like to do is I'll pull the local area and I like to see how many have had price drops and what is that specific niche. So I'm talking broader Austin. When you are making an offer on a house or you are selling, don't use this data for your micro area. This is macro. Get with an agent, reach out to me, and let's talk micro for your specific either buy box or where you're selling so that we know the market in that specific area. Because I can tell you, I showed houses this past week. It was a client that was between like a 1.5 and $3 million. And there was 5 houses. And out of the 5 houses, 2 of them are already under contract. But it was based on the location of that house where there were some high demand. So it is out there. That being said, let's also take a look. So I've talked a little bit about price reductions. We talked about the new listings that have come on. The next thing I put on, and this is new this week. So if you're just following me now and joining me, I'm Danielle Fountain from the One Realty here in Austin, Texas. We take a data-driven, all-in-one approach to real estate. Be sure to save this. Also, if you're sharing this right now, I think I've seen someone share it. I really do appreciate this so that other people can find it. I want to share some new information this week. So when I saw the active listings go down right here, my immediate thought is we need to know why they're going down. Is it going down because they're pending? Is it going down because they're getting pulled from the market? Is it what is driving the number of listings to go down? Because I have a feeling we're going to start seeing a decrease. So this week, and so you won't see the week over week delta change because I didn't track it last week. What we're going to see this week is I just want to show you, here were the listings that were hold. So 62 listings were put on hold, 89 were withdrawn, and 65 expired. So hold means they're still going to sell the house. They just took it off the public market. It's kind of on a pause. Withdrawn means that they terminated that listing with that agent. And then expired means it was the end of their listing period. So interesting enough, the median was 96 days. So people's listing agreements, the median ones around like 3 months. I think it depends on who you are and what's going on in that market, which you can see right here. If our average sales date is 71, this might be kind of hard 3 months to sell if it's not priced correctly. If it's not priced correctly, if it's not staged correctly, if it's the photos, everything kind of goes into that full package. The other thing that we're looking at is here, the listings that were withdrawn. You can see it was after about 2 months here. The median days on the market for the listings that were put on hold is 55. Now, let's just go back up here. We're looking at the average days on market is 71. The median days on market is 49. they might be pulling it kind of early. So if you are a seller, you need to know your area of how long it's actually taking to sell in your specific area, because right now you might be pulling it slightly early, but that's also back to price. It's your price, it's your condition, it's your location, it's how it's all presented that we'll talk about. Now, here's the fun numbers. So this next numbers is we are going to talk about pending. I consider pending my leading indicators. And when I say leading indicators, it's going to give me an idea of what my sold data is going to look like in the future. So right now for our pending data right here, and this is from, so if you're just joining, I do week over week. So I pull it on, you can see right here, it's 28 May to 4 June. So I do it from Wednesday to Wednesday. And the reason I do it from Wednesday to Wednesday is typically Thursday and Friday are heavy listing days. So that's going to skew, this is going to increase this number. It's going to decrease this number. It's going to play a lot with the numbers. And then Monday and Tuesday is typically when we see homes going onto the market. So if I went, or going off the market, meaning they've gone pending or they're withdrawing and holding them. So by Wednesday, it's kind of an even day. So you always see my data I pull on Wednesday, and I typically give a report, typically try to do it on Thursday. Okay, that being said, right here with our pendings. So our pendings, this is the first week we fell under 1,000. And you can see, so the past couple weeks, we've been over 1,000, which is good. But we had a really, really rough week last week. We only had 169 right here. 169 homes went pending last week. Now, granted, that also ties into holidays and different things like that, and school getting out. We're expecting that. That being said, this week we had a jump up, so we had 204. So that was good. We saw an increase there of 35 week over week. Our overall pendings were down. As far as our price points, you can see our median went up a little bit. Our average went down a little bit right here, because these are our deltas. This is our week over week delta, so it's comparing it right here. Our average days on market and our median days, both of them went up, which is not shocking considering this right here is significantly higher. If we see this go down significantly and the days on market for the listings remains the same, that's going to give us an idea that there's buyers out there waiting for property. And as soon as the property hits the market, they're taking it off the market. If that's not the case, like right here when we're going up, that's telling me that there's buyers that are entering the market that are kind of looking at some older homes that maybe have been on the market a little bit longer, or they've been waiting, for instance, maybe rates to fall. We were above 7% a few weekends ago, and then this past weekend we were below it. Maybe that's all playing into them finally taking action. And then finally here, we're going to see the number of listings with the price reductions that went under contract. Like we saw above for active, we're almost at 55% of houses with a price reduction being active. Now for pending, we're at 44.5. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, this is crazy as far as this many price reductions. Now, it can also be that houses were overpriced. I think as we get into the spring mode, everyone tries to list it a little bit higher, as well as if you bought in 2022 and you're trying to sell now 2022, 23, and maybe even 24, you're selling below where you bought it at potentially. And so that right there, people start off high and they realize they're not going to get it, and then they drop it down, with that being said. So we're about to hop into where we are with our closed data for the past 30 days. If you're just joining me, I gave you this little insight up front. We are going to also talk about what is happening, what happened in May, and we're also going to talk about where we are in June and kind of like what we expect to see. So this is the rolling 30 days. So if there was like a long holiday weekend in the month, you're going to take off. It might be a little bit lower than a previous rolling 30. Things like that are going to adjust it. So we did have Memorial Day over this. So we'll see a slightly lower than some other times that we see it. But our rolling 30 days, we've had 779 homes closed. So from 4 June and before for 30 days, that's where we are. Our average sales price, this kind of shocked me. Our average sales price jumped up week over week. And why does that shock me? Well, that shocks me because our average sales price, so our average sales price is just shy of $860,000. Our median is at $650,000. It's about $14,000, $15,000 increase in both of them, and specifically the median, because that meant that there was quite a few that either dropped off, that was bought earlier on, let's say in April that dropped off or May that dropped off. But the other part is when we were looking at these pendings from last week, you can see the average price for the pending was 859, 851 and 649. So you would expect these, if we were here, you would expect these numbers to go lower. That also might mean that there's a few houses. There are houses that get multiple offers still, not a lot of them, or that get full asking or slightly over asking. I know that sometimes, especially when it talks about commission, how they're building it in, different things like that. I'm not going down the commission route. But also as far as also contributions towards closing costs, maybe for the buyer, different things like that can happen. But that was a really interesting point to see this week. We saw no change in the days on market or median days, average or median stayed the same. Now, this is where we start to see if the market is softening. We're going to see if the market is softening in regards to sellers when they start selling their house for a lower percentage on average. So we saw a drop down on our average of 0.34%. So this is close price to list price, which means close price to what it's currently listed at. And then we'll also look at close price to original list price. So we talked about that 55% of price reductions that we've seen come along. So with those price reductions, their original list price changed to what is the current list price. So you're going to see off the current list price, they're going a little more than 2.5% off the list price on average, 2% as the median. So you're seeing kind of that's where the houses average out. And then for close price to original list price, you're seeing a little over 5% for the average, but the median's a little stronger. The median's a little stronger is 3%. And so the reason you might not see your average, the reason you might see your average a little bit higher is you're going to also have some sellers that are like in desperate need to sell their house and they're drastically dropping it to sell it. And so you're going to see that average go down, whereas the middle seller, that median seller, might not change as much. So with that, I am about to hop over and I am going to show you, we are going to go and look at where we are for May, where we ended up in May. And now granted, it is only June 5th. I can tell you, I actually went through the data. I actually went through data all the way back through December. And every month we had anywhere from like 5 to 10 more closings that were recorded. And this was this past week. So since the last time I reviewed all the numbers all the way down, which means that we typically still have houses that trickle in that sold on a certain day that didn't get updated. There are going to be a couple of reasons. One, it may be a builder that just didn't update online, that's been leaving that property out there so that other people call about that property, but they can show them other ones. Not to say that doesn't happen, but it does. You might also have someone that had something off market, sold off market, but they want to get it recorded in the MLS. Sometimes it helps the agent stats, as well as sometimes it helps as far as like appraisers and everyone to know what is selling in the area. So we are about to hop into May's numbers, and we are also going to hop into June's. Now, I will caution you with June's because we are so far, we're just 5 days in. This is more so, I'm just giving you a sneak peek behind the tent, behind the curtain. It's not gonna stay the same. I can tell you, I've seen it. I've seen every month. Last month, we started with crazy high numbers, and then they kind of tapered off down towards the end of the month. So with that being said, I'm gonna come over here and we are gonna talk about May. I know you're all excited. By the way, save this if you haven't, it helps me. So if you save it, it helps me in the algorithm for people to see it. If you're on X, you can also find me at _1_realty on X. You can find me at Austin Real Estate is what I am on YouTube to watch more of my videos. And then you can also search the One Realty on Instagram or find me at Danielle_Taylor_Fountain. So with that, we are going to hop over to May's data. I know you're all excited. If anyone does have questions, you can feel free to leave me a comment and I will be able to see it pop up and then maybe able to answer your questions or run into more information too. So, okay, here we are for the month of May. So first and foremost for the month of May, so you're going to see a couple things. If you're new to this, you're going to see all of May's data for this month is right here. Then you're going to see year over year. So all of this right here. So this differential is of this May 24. This is all this data and it's comparing them. Then we're going to go month over month. So this data right here is going to be compared to April's data from down below. And then something I just added two things I added. So if you follow me a lot, you hear a lot of these. We're gonna look at two things I've added. I added median square footage. And the reason I added median square footage is with our median sales price changing, I also want to see, is it smaller houses? Are they larger houses? Does square footage play a part in the change in the price? Is something drastically happening? Versus just giving you a price, because it's really not apples to apples unless you're looking at like within plus or minus 20% of a square footage in like a 1 mile radius, 2 mile radius. When we break down houses for our clients, we really dive into the data and we talk about that. And I'll show you guys something in a second and kind of give you a, hey, here's what we do on our reports, just so you see a little bit more. Okay, so then we saw the December change. So this is going to be where we ended December. So at December's close numbers, this is how we compare. So first and foremost, for the month of May, you can see that we so far have closed 80 fewer homes than last year. If you have been following along for any of my past weeks, March and April, we sold fewer homes in March in the past 20 years of Marches. So from March of 2005 to March this year, we sold fewer homes in March than we have any prior year in the 20 years. Same for April. And right now it's the same for May. However, we are very close. I have a feeling we will beat it. So the lowest number of homes that we've ever sold, well, not ever sold, but since 2005 was in 2020, we only sold 817 homes. And it kind of makes sense in 2020 because the lockdowns started happening in March. So that means that houses that closed in May of that year had to go under contract in April. People were not out buying houses. I can tell you that. People were gloved up, masked up, all of that to get out. So I think we will. This is surprising. We had a lot of late closings come in. We just need to have 8 more. And based on historically, I bet we'll beat that. So that is a good sign that we're having a stronger than last year. Now, not historically, because our historical average is 1,166 houses in May. We aren't getting anywhere near that. We don't even have that many pending. It's not possible. And then our high, which is crazy, in 2006 was over 1,600 houses. So we saw a drop down. And right here, you'll see my 22, this year versus the historical average, which is right down here. It's going to show you our difference and like how much under we are, just to kind of give you a perspective. And you also have to think that people weren't buying as many houses. Like we've had a lot of different people move to Austin. Our population from 2005 is completely different than now. Now, interest rates are also different. But with that being said, you can see our average sales price. Our average sales price still went up 1.62%. Our median shot down just slightly, 0.23%, shot down by $1,500. Not really that big a difference, but this is the interesting part. Our median square footage shot up a little bit. So that's probably going to play a difference in both of these numbers. This might be why it may be a little bit higher based on the median, what was sold. Days on market, we are a little bit weaker this year than last year. As far as days on market, but that's also because, like I said, March and April, we had the slowest buyers in the past 20 years for a March and April. So that's not surprising. Now, here's the next thing that we're paying attention to. Really paying attention to is that close price to list price average, that close price to list price median. What's happening in comparison? So in comparison year over year, it's weaker, meaning sellers are selling for lower amounts than they originally listed their house for, what the current list price is. So the median close price to list price right now is 98%. It's 97. Close price to list price is 98%. Close price to original list price, so when they first came to market, is 97%. They're still fairly high. Like we're not. So when people talk about like Austin tanking, to give you an example, when this was in parts of 2022, the end of 2022, when the market just fell off, these numbers were like 90 and 89. They were significantly worse. Even if we go back, and we'll look at December, actually, we'll see that down here in December's. So you can see this is December's numbers right here. It was 3%. And actually, I need to grab that data so you can see this real quick. Hold on. I'm going to this is my first time presenting it. So you guys are also going to see, oops. You are going to see a little bit of this. I appreciate your patience with me as I realize on the fly something that needs to change. So I just want you to see the difference. These over here are all easy to kind of go across and see it. But okay, that being said, we still are having significantly stronger close prices than we are in December. Even though we're seeing more price reductions, it's still a little tighter. That being said, if we say month over month, so my month over month, I always think that is big because that is showing you what is our trend. So year over year, you might have had a really great March last year, but where are we trending this year? So from where we were in April, we've closed 81 more houses, so we've had an 11% increase. We are typically in the buying season. Typically, you're going to see the best number of sales is typically like a May and a June. So we should be better. So we're seeing that here. The other thing that we're seeing is our average sales price. We are up both of them. So our average sales price, we're up $13,000 month over month, $21,000 for our median. Those are both big. Since I just added the square footage, I didn't pull it in from April, so you're not going to see that below, but we'll see it when we get to June. The other thing is for days on market. So our days on market, this is kind of our days on market, our average days on market went up, meaning our houses have been sitting longer for our average, but our, and this is comparing to this one down here, right here. So our average days on market went down by 3. Our median went up by 2. It's just, they're negating each other. So very, very similar. Now, this is where it gets interesting for us, the price softening. So we're saying we're seeing more price reductions, which would make sense that our closed price to list price month over month comparison is also down about 0.5%. That is just showing that Austin's market, that what sellers are accepting is a little bit lower. And then finally, our year to date, because people always say, where are we going to end up year to date? Are we going to be up 3%, 5%? What are we up? In 2022, we were down like 21% at the end of, or 2023 really, but we were way down mid of the year. End of 23, we recovered a little bit, got to like 19%. We thought we stopped the bleeding, continued again a little bit in 24. Where are we right now? So if we look at where we closed out in December to where we are today, our, we sold out. So far, we sold 142 more homes in December for May. That doesn't really interest me because we're going to sell more houses. What interests me is going to be the prices. So our median sales price is that we're up 3.4% from when we closed in December. We're up 6.31%. These are off slightly. I'll just read that. So we're up 6.31% for our median sales price. That's right there. Our median's up 6.3. Our average is at 3.46. Probably also because the luxury properties aren't selling as quickly. And then you can see our days on market. We are from where we were in December. It was taking a month longer to sell houses, both the median and the average, at 31 days more and 32 days more. And then finally, right here, you can see the percentages of the closed list. And I'll pull this right here. Here we go. This is going to make a lot more sense. If you hold on for a second, right there. And then I'm going to give you, I saw exactly what happened as I was doing this. And then right here, that square footage, I didn't have that square footage in my, I did not have it in, let's do this. Center, actually go over. I did not have it in, I had square footage in here, sorry. If you're just hearing me ramble, that's okay. This is live. This is what happens. This also shows you, if you're watching right now, I have no script. This is me just talking through the data, analyzing the data, understanding what is happening in our market. When it comes to all of my buyers and my sellers, and when we are looking at a market, I am pulling out, let me see, I can show you one. I'll have to, you know what, I'll do a different one. I want to show you the analysis that I do for people, but I've got to scrub it because we are a non-disclosure state. So I publicly cannot show any address of any houses and what they actually closed for. All of my clients get that data, but I can't share that publicly because if it got into the wrong hands. But it's just, we don't publicly disclose that data. That's also why if you're on Realtor.com, if you're on Redfin, if you're on Zillow, and you're telling people, oh, this is what you should offer in a house without an agent, right here, if you've been watching and we're seeing what it's selling below list price, when you see that final price that's on there, that doesn't mean what it's actually closed at. So you're not having good data that way. And data is very, very important. So with that, I appreciate you all spending the last 30 minutes with me. You'll be able to find this on YouTube if you want to watch the full thing. It's also going to be on X. If you can't find it, you want to find it, DM me and I'll shoot you a link. But my name is Danielle Fountain. I'm Danielle Marie of the One Realty here in Austin, where I'm the founder of the One Realty. We take a data-driven, all-in-one approach to real estate. With that, I hope you guys have a beautiful day. If you've been in Austin, I hope that the rain, the hail, everything, it's kind of slowed down for you. I got caught in one last night when we were out at our horse in the Cedar Creek area. Hopefully we don't have it happen again tonight. But with that, have a great day.